always helps to press the right button. Very good evening. It's Friday night, just gone 7 o'clock. You're tuned to the Friday Night Football Pitch with myself, Cameron McDonald, co-host Dennis Newell, and regular guest Graeme Duthie, Hearts supporter. I'm not going to say extraordinaire, Graeme, because I say it every week, but obviously Hearts are regularly Hearts supporter and obviously Scotland supporter as well, Graeme. So I think that's where we'll start. Good evening to you both, first of all. Good evening, Graeme. Good evening, Dennis.
Good evening, Cammy. Good evening, Graeme. Good evening. Yeah,
good evening, everybody. And that's a fact. Starting Scotland, I think, let's get it over and done with. Good result. I understand a lousy game. As you guys both know, I'm in my bed, so I very rarely can watch football in the evening, and I've tried to find the highlights of it somewhere. Can't find it on YouTube anywhere. I've been sitting all afternoon watching people playing FIFA, or people playing all sorts of stuff, and coming out of Scotland's game. But good result last night. You guys can talk about the performance because I'm quite sure you'll have both seen it.
Yeah, well, firstly, Cammy, it's been a long number of years since we were actually able to get it in terrestrial or council TV, as we call it. Without having to pay for it. So that was refreshing. But, I would have managed to get it other places. But it is good. It would be nice if we were able to share it around a wee bit more when we look at, you're paying for a license for BBC, and I'll not get into it, but anytime I see football on there, it's women's football for Scotland anyway. And I just look at it and think, why do the men not get a share of this? I think it's really disappointing, whether it's agreed with the SFA or whether we just don't market it properly. I don't know. But what must be great? Some people who can't afford the Virgin or the Sky or whatever other means that you have to pay for extra to watch international matches or any games for that matter, it was good to see that they can actually have watched a game live last night without having to pay for it. Well, you are indirectly, I suppose, with a license, but it was a start, and hopefully it will continue. And I think we've got, 12, 14 games or something like that to be seen over the next year or two. So it was decent. Graeme, I'll let you kick off with it. That's my wee grump about the television coverage, but you could start to talk about the game itself, and we'll see where we can go from there.
Well, it was the preferable game of two halves. I thought Scotland first half were pretty decent, pretty composing the ball, pretty controlled. I didn't really think Greece caused any problems. When you looked at the starting lineup, I put a thing on TikTok 2 days ago saying what my team prediction would be or what I thought it would be. I was one away. I got the whole team pretty much right, apart from I didn't realise that Ryan Christie was suspended. So Lewis Ferguson came in, but I knew that Ralston would start and I knew that Hanley would start because Steve Clark's very loyal to a fault at times. But I thought we were all right first half. Thought we were very, very controlled. The penalty we get is never a penalty. I mean, we're Scotland fans, will take it, but it is never a penalty in a million years. McTominay initiates the contact. How we got that, I do not know. But once he gets it, he sticks it away and tucked it away really well. And from then on, I thought Scotland were pretty dominant first half. Could have had a couple of goals later on. But then second half, it completely switched. Greece came out a far better team. They were more attacking. The young lad that they brought in, 17-year-old Kerestas, was a constant threat. He looks an absolute baller, this guy.
Unbelievable. One you watch, Cammy.
Yeah.
He's going to be an absolute star. He caused us numerous problems, putting in dangerous crosses, really good on the ball, some beautiful little touches. But for all that Greece were better second half, Craig Gordon's not the save to make. They've had one shot on target. There was one effort in the second half that hit the post, and actually I have to give Ralston credit because I think he does enough to put the guy off. It was really good defending. Yeah. And then we saw the game out. George Hurst got a chance to come on. I thought he did fine when he came on. But yeah, I thought overall we were decent up to a point. There's just there's a little bit of spark missing up front. And I've said it before. Che Adams works his socks off, but he's never going to score enough goals for Scotland. And this is a thing that I've said numerous times. We don't have a lot of quality coming through at Scotland. Now, George Hurst came on yesterday. James Wilson was on the bench. So was Kevin Nisbet. I never thought Wilson was going to get on. But it now sets us up for the second leg at Hampden. And it's a game that I think Scotland can definitely win. But overall yesterday, a win's a win, and I'm delighted with it. And like I said, there was some decent performances. I thought Hanley and Ralston actually did really well. Billy Gilmore again, really, really good. Defensively, I thought we were solid. And yeah, I'm happy with that. And it just hopefully we can get the job done on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the way Greece has performed over the last period has been excellent. I mean, the good result against England as well, that does mean a lot because they're one of the top teams in the world. And when you look at it, I would have taken a draw over there. We ended up with a dubious penalty, as you rightly say. I didn't think it was a penalty, no matter how many times you looked at it. It was a tangle of legs. It wasn't an assault. It was nothing like it. And if I look at this VAR again and I say, how many times do you need to look at it to realise that, you and I have both agreed it wasn't a penalty. These guys are employed to make decisions like that, and they can't get it right. Thankfully for us, it worked in our favour. Team itself done well and worked hard. I still have a problem with loyalty. Loyalty can get you the sack, and there's no sentiment in football. And Steve Clarke will end up that way. Mark my words, because he done it sometimes with the boy Donnelly, Stephen Donnelly.
Oh, Stephen O'Donnell.
Stephen O'Donnell.
Sorry, it shows you how long ago it was since he played. He had a player there that just wasn't fit for playing with Scotland in my eyes at that time, and he kept playing him and playing him and playing him, and eventually to leave him out. Now it doesn't seem to see that with Ralston, that we're moving forward as a nation. You need to be trying to put people in there to fill the gap, and if they're not good enough, bring Ralston in after it and say, okay, here's your chance again, right? Hanley, never. I mean, he done his utmost in the second half to give them a penalty. I mean, he's very fortunate. The ball was outside the box, otherwise it's a definite penalty, because he's clumsy. He's absolutely clumsy. And as much as I've heard people saying, oh, he had a good game, only because of his standards, he's had a good game. He can't even get a game at Birmingham. He's farmed out from Norwich to Birmingham and he still can't get a game. And we're throwing him into the Lions' Den in international matches. I tell you what, no on this planet would I be looking at a player doing that. So loyalty is one thing. I just don't believe that sentiment side of it, which I think is sentiment, that he can see enough in Grant Hanley to be playing him in a game as important as that. And then Porteous comes on, and his first tackle could have put him back to where he was a couple of years ago, where he gets sent off, or a year ago, whatever it was. They're almost identical. He clips the boy, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Learn your lesson. And then it was quite erratic after that as well, and he could have easily been back off the park. The way the referee was going, not in my eyes, I think the tackles were nothing, but the way the standard of refereeing is now. So, and then look up front, Shea Adams for me, same as Grant Hanley. I'm not saying Grant Hanley doesn't work, but he's not what we need in the Scotland team. And I've rattled my gums about this for years, Cammy. You know that since he got a jersey, because he's never been fit for purpose at an international level, right? I'm not saying the boy's a bad player. International level for Scotland, Hanley is not for us or for me. Up front, Shea Adams, similar. You've got other people there, other people that can come on and we have a bit of life in them that will give us, maybe get round the back of defence. You even heard James McFadden last night pulling up where he should have been when the ball was whipped into the box. Now, see, when the commentators are actually saying that, you know yourself, they're not actually saying, by the way, that's murder. You should have been in that front post. What are you doing away in the penalty spot? And that was the case last night. I'm sitting watching it and I'm thinking, get across the front of him and the ball can come in and you maybe get a chance. Instead of that, ball comes in, defender clears it. So disappointment when I start to look at the failures of the game, that we could have maybe picked up maybe another goal or two, because Adams did have a couple of decent chances. He was out in the right-hand channel, and all he had to do is potentially hit the target, and he screamed it wide. And I go, no. So, yes, result, absolutely delighted from a Greek team that were stifled by the way Scotland played. And that's where I'll give Scotland credit. They worked their socks off, including Hanley, but there's flaws there that with better teams, we would have got caught out big time.
We know that, but I mean, we know Scotland aren't up to competing with. We're not up to competing with the top sides in Europe, let alone the world. We're not up to competing it, and we do have too many flaws. At the back, we're not as strong as we should be. Up front, we're not as strong as we should be. Stand by it. I think we've got one of the best midfields in European international football. But certainly one of the best midfield players in McTominay. Who I think since he got into Napoli has been an absolute standout and a revelation at Napoli. Billy Gilmour, you've mentioned him, and one or two others there. We are strong in the middle of the park. Up front, we're very deficient, and at centre half, we certainly lack. To me, John Souttar is probably Scotland's
he's good,
best option. At centre half, but who do you stick alongside him? I don't think Hanley's the answer. But Graeme, what are the alternatives? That's the problem. We're looking around. Who's the alternative to Hanley?
Yeah, I mean, Dennis kind of made the point I was going to make as well about Ryan Porteous, and folk will think, oh, he's a Hearts fan saying that. It's genuinely not. I don't mind Ryan Porteous. This is a Scotland thing. When anyone plays for Scotland, I'll back them. But when he came on last night, he was very rash. There were 2 or 3 challenges he didn't need to make. And I thought he'd learned his lessons from that. But it seems that he's still not learning. He got sent off in the opening game against Germany in the Euros because of rash challenges. He needs to stop that, or he's never going to start. This is probably why Steve Clarke doesn't start him, because he is still very rash. Whether he's trying to prove a point and say, I want to be in here, I don't know. But you can't be doing what he did last night because he was very erratic. But there isn't a lot of other options. And I think John Souttar probably is our best centre-back. Grant Hanley... Again, when everyone says his name on the team sheet, you go, oh, why is he still starting? But I generally thought he was all right last night. He wasn't terrible. I know it's a low bar, but there isn't.
That's the problem I've got, Graeme, is that we have an acceptance to move on to the next game and give him the jersey again. Do we wait till we get found out again? And that's my problem. There is alternatives that you've got to try. You've got to try it. You've got Boy Henry, throw him in there, see how it goes. And the other one, I certainly wouldn't give a jersey to Scott McKenna, because he's in the same mould as Hanley. So we are in need of finding somebody that can play another centre half role, or someone that could even be in there beside Souttar that'll shore it up. But again, Cammy touched on it. Yeah, it's what we have. But I think when you look at getting to the next stage, I think we need to be throwing some of these guys in the Lions' Den and see what they've got. Even if you have to suffer defeats, he's had enough chances with these players in the past that you look at the boy Hurst. I thought he looked more lively than I anticipated. Let's put it that way. And he looks a strong boy. And I would have given him at least half a game, because it was never going to happen for Adams. Never.
I mean, what you could potentially do, you could go a back three and play Souttar, Tierney, and Jack. Now that Tierney's back, you could maybe change the formation, because he did like the back three. And the only reason they stopped playing it was because Tierney was injured. Now Tierney's back, you could actually go back to that back three and play that back three of Souttar, Tierney, and Hendry, which I think would probably work better than what we've got already.
Yeah. But what does that do at your midfield?
I don't think it does anything, Cammy, because the bottom line is you're still putting 11 out there, and you're taking out potentially areas that maybe could be stronger by just saying what Graeme said. You're not removing anybody of the quality of the midfield. If anything, you're helping them out a little bit, because you're going to get the 2 wing backs that will create more up the park.
The other thing as well, and I was discussing this on other podcasts as well on Monday night, we were talking about the goalkeepers, and it's quite funny because it wasn't that long ago people thought that Gordon's international career was done. So did I. But now he's number one again, and you're looking at that, the other goalkeepers will go there, Liam Kelly and Kieran Slicker. I've never seen Kieran Slicker play. I don't know what he's like. And then Liam Kelly, he's maybe not the best goalkeeper. And somebody actually asked, what do we do if Craig Gordon gets injured? And that's another problem we've got. We don't have a lot of goalkeepers. Angus Gunn's obviously injured, but I'm not a massive fan of Angus Gunn either. So you've not really got a lot of you've got Robbie McCrory. Is he really going to step up into Scotland? So that's another issue we've got. But the only really, I think you mentioned it there, the only really part we're strong in is midfield. Every other area of the park, we're really struggling. But we are getting results, which is what matters in the end.
absolutely brilliant. Because
It's-
what would we be like sitting just now if we get absolutely bluttered last night, so to speak?
yeah,
Because we've given them a bit of a kicking with the fact that we'll win the game. What do we do when we get beat? All I'm really saying is there's areas I would like the manager to maybe have the trust in the players that he's bringing in. Otherwise, don't have, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 or 12 or whatever it is, substitutes, right? Just take 3, because you know you're not going to try these boys out. What's the point of taking wee boy Wilson? What's the point in that? To feel part of the squad? I'm never into that, feeling part of the squad. You're either good enough or you're not. And I think you've got to then learn that you throw people on and you give them a good run. No matter of minutes. The boy Hurst should have been on at least for half time when you know Adams has no scored for how many weeks or years or whatever it may be, for ages. So you've got your Nisbet as well. If you think that Nisbet's better than what we already had, that's why he's in the squad. Put him on. No signing it. And that's what disappoints me.
That's coming down to the loyalty that you were talking about earlier on, Dennis.
Right?
You know, I mean, Steve Clarke's got some fantastic results recently as Scotland manager, you know, after enduring a really terrible Euros. He's got some cracking results, but the big flaw in his armour is that he is far too loyal to some of these players, the Grant Hanleys, the Shea Adams, you know, the players who have really done not a great deal for Scotland. I don't want to say nothing, but haven't done a great deal for Scotland. Clarke sticks by them. And eventually that is going to be his downfall, I think, because he doesn't seem to want to blood the Lennon Millers, the James Wilsons, you know, some of these other players that are fringe players in the squad. This is the time for me to blood them. Forget where he's sitting in the Nations League. You know, I mean, let's be honest. It's a Mickey Mouse bollocks tournament. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, forget that kind of stuff. The big stuff's the World Cup. The big stuff's the European Championships. This is all Mickey Mouse. This is you getting a chance to blood players. You know, other nations have done it, and we are far too intent to try to get results.
That's exactly my point. You've just hit it in the head. Games like this, you bring these players in because you think they're going to be good for you. Are they going to be good in the future if they're sitting on the bench? Absolutely not.
100%.
No, not at all. Now, there's another thing which I would use very, very carefully. There is a lot of managers in football have this thing called self-preservation, right? Self-preservation. Well, they'll do anything so they're not embarrassed in a game by having had a go at it and losing maybe 2 goals, 3 goals. I don't know how many there is that I've seen over the years that have this. Self-preservation. The team's absolutely garbage because they won't change it, but they don't want to be beaten heavily. You would understand that, but they've not got the bottle to actually go and change the team and try and freshen it up. Now, I'm not saying that's a full example of what's going on just now, but you've made the point. Mickey Mouse tournament. What fresh blood did we bring into that team?
Yeah,
virtually nothing. So that's my disappointing thing. Forget about the result. That's the point we're talking about now. Result was magnificent. It was an average game. And the other thing, just to finish off in that, is I don't expect internationals with Scotland to be the same as anything like the Champions League or the Europa League. And that's what I noticed last night. There is a massive, massive gulf from international football now to the Champions League. And I mean massive. The quality, it's almost like a different level altogether now. Whereas before you used to find that internationals were as good as European ties. They're a million miles away from that now. Yeah.
No.
Anyway.
Graeme, you want to come in with something there?
I was just going to say, I think the one player that I thought we really missed last night was Ben Doak. I think since he's come in, he's been brilliant. He's got that pace. He's got that real creativity that I think we lacked. And yesterday, when we're under the caution the second half, you need that out ball. You've not got Ben Doak with that pace to get past somebody. You've got Shea Adams, who, yes, can hold the ball up, but he's not got that explosive pace that's going to really cause problems. I kind of thought we'd missed Doak yesterday, and I thought at times that really showed. You know, like I said, they'll bring on a 17-year-old, that Carestas, who was really good. The last few games that we've played, the one player you look at and think, this guy's going to cause problems with Ben Doak. We didn't really have that last night.
But
No.
Graeme, just on that point, what did it take for Ben Doak to get in that team? He was a breath of fresh air. How many games has he had now? 2 or 3? The bottom line is you have to have that commitment and faith in a young player to put him in. Now, Steve Clarke should know that and look at this and go, by the way, there's the reward you get if you actually go and do that. There's other players were sitting on that bench last night that might have brought the same rewards, but it never happened. And yet you've just brought up somebody that was put in the firing line, and he's done exceptionally well. And you're right, we did miss him to a point, but you know, you look at it, that's where you're bringing other players in that you're hoping are going to do the gig, but you've got to play them.
I always think if you've got young players in the squad and they come on, there is that excitement. You know, I knew Wilson wouldn't come on yesterday because I thought he probably won't get a chance. But I know it's a good opportunity for him. But honestly, seeing a guy like Wilson getting a start, seeing a guy like Lennon Miller getting a start, it would actually lift the fans as well, thinking we're actually getting to see something different here. You know, I have no problem with Lewis Ferguson starting, Billy Gilmore starting, brilliant. But, and I'm not meaning to be disrespectful here, but Kenny McLean.
Yes.
For me, Lennon Miller would be starting over Kenny McLean. I would like to see young laddies. Yeah. I think Dennis is right. I'd like to see young laddies getting a chance, and they get more time because fans are patient with young laddies. They will actually like to see these young laddies playing, but you're still playing. And I keep saying it, no disrespect, but we still keep playing guys like Kenny McLean. We've done that. Get someone like Lennon Miller in the team who's going to offer something a bit different. I might be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
You're spot on. And Kenny McLean was the one I was going to come back with after you finished that, but you get in there before me. That Liam Miller would have been a good opportunity to see what the boys got. And again, I go back to
Lennon Miller.
If it's not, maybe it'd be better Liam Miller than Kenny McLean. But the thing is, maybe after an hour, if it's not working, you can bring Kenny McLean on. You know what you're going to get from him. So you've got to try these things. And not in the last 10 minutes either. I'm not into that. Yeah, bring them and put them in the squad. The reason they're there is not to sit and think for all that time where your adrenaline's pumping as a player and you know, really deep down, I know.
You're not getting on.
Aye. That's a mother feeling, by the way. I had that many's a time in my career.
No comment.
I know.
Thing is, but I bet you could have scored. No, I'm not even going to bother that one.
No, we'll not go there.
That's
I've missed some chances you would not believe, but I've also scored some decent goals. So
you missed some boys needed to believe, but never mind. That's another story. Anyway, moving away. Well, finally, can Scotland get a result on Sunday?
Yeah, why not? I even with the squad he's got, I know we've nitpicked and pulled it apart a wee bit. I think they're still capable. They're not the worst in the world. And if Greece come as they did in the second half, I think we're still capable. We've got plenty of desire, and that's a good thing that Steve Clarke's brought to it. There is a breath of fresh air with him being as a manager, but there's an element there where we're dissecting it a good bit, and I believe that to move forward and help him, in my eyes, only my eyes, it needs freshened up and be a wee bit more, what do you say, carefree. Get rid of the sentiment.
Yeah. Graeme, Dennis is right. Thank Christ we won because we've definitely destroyed them after, if they get beat, goodness knows where would be. But what's your thoughts for Sunday? Do you think Scotland can get the victory? Or are Scotland set up to get results away from home?
No, I'm actually quite confident. I think we'll get the job done. If we get a goal, even better. I think we've beat better teams than Greece recently. Yep. You've only got to look at Poland, the last game we won. We definitely can win this game, and I think we will get the job done. And also what I'd like to say as well, over the years, I have seen so many players pull out of Scotland squads. I don't see that now. I think he's brought as much as Steve Clarke does get criticised, and I do agree with a lot of what's getting said about him. He has got a kind of club mentality around it. I very rarely now see players pulling out of Scotland squad, which I think is great. And I genuinely think Scotland will get the job done on Sunday. Greece, yes, they will be a threat. They're a decent side, but they're not any better than what I've seen recently, personally.
Yeah. Good. Well, here's hoping that Scotland can indeed get that result on Sunday at Hampden, and then see where we are in the Nations League next season, in this Mickey Mouse bollocks tournament. Graeme, moving away, obviously we had you on a number of weeks ago. We discussed what's happening in the capital, expecting Hibs at some point in time I think to quote you, to Hibs it so far it hasn't happened. And it's as a neutral, it's actually been great watching a kind of resurgence since the turn of the year of both clubs in Edinburgh, Hearts and Hibs. But you're 7 points adrift, I think, of them at the top of it or in the SPL. One, do you still stand by Hibs going to Hibs it? Or two, can indeed you guys catch them, obviously secure a place in the top 6 and then push on towards a top 3, top 4 finish?
5 points, Cammy.
5, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
I hadn't looked at the league tables. That was no bad.
Yeah.
When you make predictions that can come back to bite you in the after, I wish I said that a few weeks ago, because unfortunately, I don't think they are going to Hibs it now. I think they probably will get third, which is really frustrating to say, but I'm going to be honest. Fair play to them. Like, they've done a very good job. Fair play to David Gray. It wasn't that long ago, October time, in the first derby, Easter Road, they were bottom, we were second bottom. And the turnaround since then has been incredible from Hibs. We've improved, but Hibs have been very, very good. What a run they've had. They got beat, obviously, at Celtic Park in the Cup, but that wasn't unexpected. But in the league, they're still unbeaten. So fair play to David Gray. He's done a very good job, and I think they probably will get third now, and fair play to him. But I think in terms of Hearts, top 6 is definitely doable. We've got 3 games to go for the split. We had to win the game against Ross County last week. It wasn't a great performance. I didn't think we were great after all, but we got the job done.
That's what it counts.
Yeah, our next game is Celtic, and that worries me. They'll be looking to bounce back after that game against Rangers, and I kind of think top 6 might come down to goal difference. We can't afford to go to Celtic Park and take a pasting. Otherwise, it could be very difficult for us. The 2 games after that, Duthie United at home, Motherwell away, I think we have to win both. If we win those, we'll probably get top 6, but it's going to be very difficult. Very difficult. I have changed my opinion so many times about whether we're going to top 6 or not. I keep changing my opinion. I'm going to try and be positive and say, yes, I think we'll get top 6. But I am concerned for next week because we did win at Celtic Park last season, our first win there in 14 years. But this is a different Celtic team. They've got a guy in Daz Maeda who's got 28 goals this season. They've got threats like Wade and Kuna Maeda. They're a very good side this season. I am concerned. My main aim next week, and I hate being negative about my team, my main aim next week is not to take a hammering. Keep the score down, keep it respectable, be competitive, and then see what happens after that. If we take a pasting, I mean, it could be not going to make it great for confidence, but also not great for goal difference.
Yeah. See on the back of the 2 results you've lost would have got you up there, a point in front of them. One of them was against Hibs, and the other game was Rangers. That's the 2 that you've lost since February, and that's it. Looking at the gulf now between the 2 of you, it's no massive. It's only a 2-game swing as we normally talk about. And you've got to look at it in the next few games coming up. Rangers have got Hibs at Ibrox. So that could be something to capture if you could even get a draw against Celtic. So it's not so much these are a million mile away. It's just the fact if you look at the Hibs game, the Hibs game will be so crucial come the end of the season in relation to no game at least getting a draw out of it. Because that looking at it would have kept you almost neck and neck.
Yeah, I know it's about what ifs and stuff, and football is like that, but there has been games recently that I've been very frustrated. The game at Pataudry we drew 0-0. George Grant missed a penalty. We get 1 point instead of 3. That should have been 3 points. Ross County, 2-0 up in the last minute, lose 2 goals.
Yeah.
And that should have been 3 points. If we get these 6 points, we're well in the top 6, and there's not even any debate about it. But it's stuff like that is really frustrating. Because I've been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks. It's these kind of points that have really let us down. When you look at the Rangers game at Tynecastle, we lose the game 3-1, but we had 21 attempts, and we should have had a penalty in that game as well. So it's stuff like that is really frustrating. I just think if we'd have got these points, we wouldn't be in this position. We'd be well in there. So it's football. It's one of these things, but it is frustrating when I look back at these games thinking, what if?
Yeah.
When you look at the table, Graeme, I know you're saying about goal difference. It's going to take one. You're going to have an absolute. You say a pasting. It's going to have to be an absolute drubbing for you to think about goal difference. You know, Mother, you're 17 goals ahead of Mother. Let's get the old match. 15 ahead of St Mirren. You know, I think looking at goal difference, you should be okay. But it's when you consider that the points, you're a point ahead of Motherwell just now, 4 ahead of St Mirren. I still definitely fancy you, irrespective of the result against Celtic next week, to actually finish top 6. You know, what are you going to make inroads into Aberdeen or Dundee United above you? I'm not so sure. But definitely, as I say, I definitely fancy you finish top 6.
I think a lot boils down to what teams round about you do, because when you look at Celtic and Rangers, you look at them as two teams that you don't expect them to drop points. So you've got to look at the teams round about you, like Motherwell, Aberdeen. They're playing Motherwell on the 29th, just pulling that one up, and you say to yourself, that could be a draw that would work in your favour. Again, you have to try and get something against Celtic. And that's a difficult one. Other teams as well around about, Dundee United, Ross County. Well, they can pick away at Dundee United. So it's teams round about. I'd be looking at where they will drop points to allow Hearts to get in. That's how I'd be looking at it. And one way of saying, well, we ain't to finish the article because we have lost to Rangers and Hibs. You might find that they're the games that you lose, but it still allows you to then say the teams that are maybe above or the ones challenging, like Motherwell, St Mirren, even Ross County, they'll be beaten at some point throughout the season. You've just got to maintain a level of playing the lesser teams, if we call it that, in your eyes, that you win the matches. If you do, you'll end up in the top 6. The Celtic and Rangers games are free hits and they always take care of themselves. But the bottom line is your main competitor is really Hibs, because that's who you're battling with, Celtic and Rangers. Right. The rest you've got to make sure that you take care of.
Yeah. I've been saying for the last few weeks that I think it's between us and Motherwell for that top 6. And our last game before the split is Motherwell. That could be absolutely crucial, which is why I think we need to win against United and Motherwell. United at home is going to be difficult because they're a decent side. United, it'll be a tough game. Motherwell at Fir Park is the one. I think if we win that, we'll probably be top 6 between us two. I think I'm not over
100%.
Ross County. I think it's Motherwell. They're the team we're looking at.
Yeah.
Well, but what you've got that none of the other sides around you, you know, the Motherwells, the St Mirrens, you've got a striker in form, you know, and Elton Kabangu is absolutely banging for him. And he, for me, has been the difference for Hearts since the turn of the year. You know, for what you were beforehand to what you've been since January, it's been the difference. He definitely has been the player who's made the difference to you.
I had to bite my tongue because I was at the Dundee Cup game with my laddie. We were in the Wheatfield stand at the Hearts Dundee Cup game, and there was a guy beside me, and Kabangi missed a couple of chances, as this happens. And more than once, he said, that guy is awful. And I felt like saying to him, do you watch football? He's our top scorer. He came in January and he's our top scorer. Are you having a laugh? Just because he's missed a couple of chances. I didn't say anything, but I wanted to. And then he kept repeating it. This guy is awful. And I had to, because my lad was with me, I couldn't say anything. But honestly, he's got 8 goals since he came in January. He's been brilliant. He does get caught offside quite a bit, but it's because he plays on the shoulder of that defender quite a lot. And a lot of the time as well is because he's not getting the pass played when he should be getting played in.
Yep.
He has made such a difference. He's been brilliant. He's physical. He's got a pace about him. He's actually helping Shankland as well, because since Shankland's dropped a bit deeper, Shankland's been a lot better because he's got that pressure taken off him. He's been brilliant, Kabangu, and he's somebody that we've got an option to buy end of the season. And I said it weeks ago, right now, I'm taking it. He's been such a good influence. And as well, James Wilson as well has learned from him as well. And what I like about him as well, there was a game a few weeks ago, I can't remember who it was against, but Lewis Nielsen, our centre-back, made a really good tackle. Elton Kabangu was back, clapping him. He's a proper team player. I really like him. And if we If we have the option to keep him end of the season, I am 100% taking it because he's made a huge difference.
Yeah, that's what you need, Dennis. You need players there who not only are going to do the business on the park, but as Graeme says, he's come in January, he's slotted well into the side, he's adapted and adjusted, and he's offering more than just goals. You know, he's obviously there for his teammates around him as well. You know, that's the kind of player I know you as a manager loved.
Well, I did highlight a way back when we first come on the show, Graeme, that the one thing was that you needed somebody up front because Lawrence Shanklin wasn't doing it. And what has actually happened is you have made a slot for Lawrence Shanklin's deficiencies. Now, it might sound a bit harsh, but that boy's got out of jail because of the new centre forward coming in, because it proves that Scotland manager doesn't rate him. And he's not scoring goals. Now, most people, when they're a centre forward and they don't score goals, are left out of the team. Hearts have made a role for Lawrence Shanklin, and I don't know whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. He certainly fits the bill playing in the hole, and he does a good job.
Yeah.
But what's happened to the striker that we've seen that potentially the old firm we're looking at last year, that's a shadow of the boy that's there. And that worries me, because he's got more in his locker than we're actually seeing is potentially adding to that Hearts forward line. I think now he's got the luxury of the big lad playing up front, and it takes a bit of pressure off him if there ever was pressure on him. But is there something lacking with Shanklin still, that he's not got that desire or appetite to be up there scoring goals? There's nothing better if you're a centre forward scoring goals and hitting the back of the net. There's nothing better. Right, I've done it twice, I think, in 20 years, so it's brilliant.
Just ask Chris Boyd.
The bottom line is, it's really excellent. Now, how can he get away from that and think, I'll just sit in this role back and forward? For me, it lacks almost appetite. Now, you see him week in and week out, and he is doing a good job for you, so I'm not criticising that point. I'm just thinking, what would it be like if he was adding to the goals tally as well when you come up against the Hibs, the Aberdeens, the Rangers, the Celtics? What would it be like if he was adding as well? I don't think he's adding enough. That's the point I'm making. Then you look at Vargas. He should have been out the door. I keep repeating that every time we speak. He shouldn't even be in the bench because it's only somebody's jersey he's taking. So Hearts, to me, are as good as Hibs. And on their day, I think they're better. They've got better defence. The big guy plays at centre-half with Hibs. He'll eventually get found out in big time. Rocky or whatever his name is, Marciano or something. But the thing is, he is not a Premier League centre-half, and he'll get found out. Whereas I think you are more compact. You'll get talent in that team. I mean, Hibs have got it as well, but I do believe, in my eyes, Hearts are a better team. We have a better future. But I do think as well, they've got to get that big fella tied up or bring in additional forwards. Tell me something, and this is the point I'm getting to. What is the Tony Bloom model with Hearts? Because I'm lost in what's happening there.
I was watching a podcast where it came on, a Hearts podcast, and we were talking about this, and they are hoping that it's going to be all sorted by the end of next month, hopefully. They'll be putting investment in around about £10 million, which is great as a Hearts fan to hear that. How much of that will be spent in the playing squad, I do not know. But I think what has happened is the Jamestown analytics stuff has worked really well, because we signed 5 players in January, and pretty much all of them have had an impact. Obviously, Kabanga's the big one because he's scoring goals. But I think Michael Steinwend, the Austrian defender, has been really good. Jamie McCart's been really good. I didn't realise how actually good a defender he was. You're looking at Sander Khartoum, got the 2 goals against Dundee. I think it's worked really, really well.
So what is the system, though? You know, you're saying it's analytical. Where is that coming from in relation to how is the system worked that they're identifying these players?
So what basically happens is that, from what my understanding of it is, Neil Critchley will go to the board and say what kind of player that he's looking for, whether it be a striker, defender, whatever it is, and what types of strengths he's looking for. And the analytics will punch all those details in, and it will come up with a list of players. And then they'll identify basically the player that's top of that list in their role. So the likes of Jamie McCart, for example. And I think that is apparently how it's all working. And to be fair, it's actually done a decent job. Now, where I think come the summer, which is the big one, because once Tony Bloom's investment comes in, he'll get I don't know how much it's going to be that he's going to actually hold a share in, but there'll be a lot of players, I believe, going out in the summer and a lot coming in. I think that Hearts team next season is going to look very different. It's exciting, but it's also kind of, you are thinking about what we're going to get, what type of player are we going to get, who we're going to bring in. It is very exciting, but we're all still waiting to find out exactly when Tony Bloom's going to be coming in, how much he's putting in, because 10 million was mentioned, but we're just waiting to find out what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, on your analytical list, I think I am going to take 50 years off my age and I could appear on your list. So don't be surprised if somebody comes along with a rubber and takes 50 years off my age. You might have me in your list. Maybe. But you know what I mean? When I look at lists for people, it's almost back to looking at stats and saying somebody had a good game because they run all over the place. But 5 of the touches he had were shambles and he ended up scoring 2 OGs. And I look at that and I go, yes, I'm okay for some stats, but not to the level of saying, I mean, it's worked for the big fella up front. Absolutely brilliant. If you get another 2 like that, then it does work. But, you know, maybe I'm just old-fashioned at total stats when you're saying exactly what you need. I mean, that's always been there. You know, you go along, whether it's the back of a fag packet and you wrote down the stats of he's 6'3", he's got all right footed and he's slow on the ground. But, you know, and the things is what we're really talking about.
I almost sounded like you.
No, I'm not that tall. No, but you know what I'm saying. It's great if it works. And I think as something going forward, Hearts definitely could do with that. And up to now, it's worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worked at Brighton and at Union Shamrock. Yeah. Obviously, Tony Bloom's got dealing with as well. So I think it has worked. And I think I would like to see some investment come in. We have still never, our most expensive signing was Mirsad Bousleja, £850,000 that we signed years and years ago in 2006. And he was awful. I would like to see us break our budget to sign a really top quality player for a lot of money. Like Aberdeen have done with Keskin. I think they spent about £1 million on him. I would like to see Hearts actually doing that because we're a big enough club to do it. Whether we will, I don't know. But, I mean, like I said, there's a number of players come the summer that will be away. I mean, we didn't that long ago, and you mentioned Kenny Vargas there. It wasn't that long ago we gave him a 5-year contract, and then he came out with that ridiculous statement saying that he wants to play at a bigger club and against better players. And I was like, mate, you can't even play against Ross County. How are you going to play against better? Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that, and I said at the time, please get rid of him. But we gave him a 5-year contract not long ago. You've got Alan Forrest who's still there, who is a decent professional. But again, right now for Hearts is what we need. I don't think so. Although the other day in a bounce game against St Johnstone, he scored 4 goals. But yeah, there's a lot of players I think that will leave. Lawrence Shanklin's one of them. I think he will be gone in the summer. And I wish him nothing but the best. I've got nothing against the guy. This season has been really frustrating. But I can't forget what he's done the last 2 seasons. 28 goals first season, 31 goals last season. This season's been very frustrating for him and us. I mean, if he'd been scoring the same amount of goals as last season, we wouldn't be sitting where we are now. We'd be well up for third.
That's the point I've been trying to make earlier. That's the point I'm making. You know, he's got to chip in with goals. He just can't be left to a new guy coming in and he's sitting in the fringe of the edge of the box, no really contributing. And that's you're correct in that one. Yeah,
100%. But Dennis, there was another reason you were mentioning the Tony Bloom revolution at Hearts, obviously, and it's linking with what we are doing on next week's show. On you go, I'll let you mention it.
Well, we know. Billy Reid, West Ham's assistant manager, is going to join us next week, and hopefully Andy Millen as well. So
Andy's confirmed as well, yep.
And Andy knows him from his Clyde days and other clubs as well. So Billy's obviously had a wealth of experience with being at Clyde and Hamilton, and has had manager of the year when he was at Hamilton as well. And then he obviously has joined Graham Potter over the last, 3, 6, probably about 12 years or so.
Anyway, yeah.
So they've been in Sweden, they've been in Brighton, short spell in Chelsea, now they're at West Ham. So Billy's going to join us next week. I spoke to him earlier today, so he'll come on for an hour and we can get a bit of banter from him. I think he's thoroughly enjoying West Ham, so we'll leave it to him to actually tell us about it next week.
Yeah, indeed. So,
and we can find out how the Brighton, we can find out how the Brighton thing went as well, and how it works with Tony Bloom in relation to what Hearts is doing as well. Yeah,
maybe get a greater insight into that, Graeme, and maybe how it might well work at Hearts in the long term, rather than just obviously the first initial 6 to 10 months or so that it's been in basically working there just now, So something for anybody to look forward to next Friday night, 7 o'clock, as we say. West Ham assistant manager Billy Reid will be joining us alongside obviously Morton assistant manager Andy Millen as well. So promises to be a good show next week, guys. So anybody at all listening, tell your pals, like, share. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You'll get notified when new episodes drop, particularly stuff like that for next week anyway.
Less time for me to rant.
Well, that's that. So no 10-minute rants for you next week.
I'll be stifled.
Aye, let's see if anybody can stop you ranting. That would be the first thing anyway. Yeah. But moving on, before we take a quick look at I was going to say the fixtures, but no, it's international week anyway, so not a great deal of fixtures to look forward to. We've touched on it last week briefly, and obviously mentioned it in the preamble of the show tonight. There's been a proposal to restructure Tier 5 in the Scottish football pyramid, which is basically going to see the Lowland League change to Lowland League East and Lowland League West. So essentially they're going to regionalise the Lowland League in terms of obviously reducing the travel costs for a lot of clubs. I think a lot of clubs, when they go to decent away games, rather than obviously players taking their car, they'll maybe hire a coach or whatever else, So it increases clubs' transport costs, the fact that we're up and down the country. We spoke about it 3 or 4 times, Dennis. I think you in particular has been very critical of midweek fixtures, when you've got Stranraer going up to Elgin, or silly trips like that, or whatever else. Is it a proposal, Graeme, that we should really be looking at? There's a lot of talk about restructuring the Premier League, in terms of, do we want to make a 14-team league? Do we want to go 16? Do we want to do a split of 6 and 8 and in conjunction with what in line with what Greece does and things like that? But to me, our Scottish Football League, the 42 clubs that we have in it, one, it's too big, but two, should we be looking at restructuring and perhaps regionalising Leagues 1 and Leagues 2 in Scotland? So we have basically an SPL, or whatever you want to call it, a championship, and then the next 2 leagues are regionalised between North and South, or East and West, or whatever else.
I mean, I have long been an advocate of restructuring the league, and I've said this for so many times. People in the locker room have got sick of me hearing it, because I've said it so many times, and it should have happened during COVID. I would have loved to see the league get extended to 18 teams. It'll never happen now. They blew the chance to do that because they let teams vote for their own self-interest, which I do get, but it should have happened then. If it's going to cut costs for lower teams, then fair enough. But I mean, I'd love to know how clubs feel about it. Are they actually up for it? Do they want to do it? I mean, again, something I've always said as well, you talk about the Lowland League, you talk about Celtic, Rangers, you got Hearts B in there. Something that I have said for so long, I really, really missed the Reserve League. I thought the Reserve League was fantastic. I used to go to, when I couldn't go to the Hearts games, I'd go to the Reserve games. You see youngsters, you see players that have been injured that just came back, and it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Celtic, Rangers in these Lowland leagues, I think it's an absolute waste of time. What are these young players learning? Absolutely nothing. It's pointless. But I would be interested to know what these other teams think about this. Are they for it? Are they against it?
Yeah.
I think looking at it, League 1 and League 2 and Lowland League. We'll look at the 3 leagues as an example. The Lowland League has not got a massive amount of travel. You've got Gretna, and then really I think when you look at it, where are we? Probably Linlithgow Rose. I'm looking at Gretna as one. Remember, they're down the borders. The rest are all within a zone that you could maybe say central region, right? So for a restructure of the Lowland League, I would say no at this moment in time to divide it because there's no necessity. League One and League Two, without a doubt, because if we go into League One, you've Inverness in that at this moment in time. We'll take the teams that are in it. Inverness, Dumbarton, right? That's a shift and a half going from one end of the country to the other. So we don't need that. Then you look at League Two, and it was touched on earlier. Elgin City, away up there, when they could be playing in, we'll call it North League, instead of that division they're in just now, and Peterhead as well. Then you've got away down to Stranraer. Or even you look at it, the Central Belt with Stirling Albion, if you're coming from Peterhead or Elgin, it's not financially viable in my eyes. Now, if you want to take even supporters up there, what it costs them for to be renting a bus or whatever they are, or going in a car, is expensive when you take one extreme to the other. That alone will deter people from following their team every week, right? There will be diehards, but it will not be in the hundreds. So therefore, it is not viable. From the clubs themselves, they're already finding it difficult to be sustainable in their own environment without having to take in areas that, in my eyes, are a million miles away. And as rightly Cammy says earlier, I've had a rant about the fact of fixtures where Elgin can be away up to Stranraer in the middle of the week. What's that about? Guys work within these clubs, and not all of them can get time off. Now, I had a period at Stranraer, and there was midweek games when I had to get out to Stranraer, and I was fortunate because it let me go on the bench because some guys couldn't turn up for their work. I'm joking on that one, but that's what happens. Though, but that's what happens. People can't get time off their work, so the team itself that could be going well suffer with a midweek tie when you're travelling. So I just don't realise. I think that it is actually professional football when we start to dissect it and say they're in the same category. If that was not England non-league, we'd be embarrassed with the way we run our game. The English non-league teams will pay an awful lot more money, and they will also have better stadia. We look sometimes, when I look at the first and second division, it is quite, what would you say, a long way off of moving forward into this next century, so to speak. We're not anywhere near it. We're still back in the 70s in my eyes. And a lot of the stadiums are just crumbling away. You know, there's teams not actually got clubs, got their own club. East Stirling, Clyde. I don't know how many others there is. But then you look at the other side of it, Cowdenbeath with a stock car racing around the side of it. They've not changed. And when you look at it, it's like the dark ages when you see any films or footage from it. So how do we get it with financial benefits? And that is to cut out all this long travel. I don't know what it is for a club throughout the season to be doing these long journeys. But I'll tell you something, I bet you it's a good part of their revenue. The Lowland League, as I say, I would leave that at this moment in time and just let that. You've really got to look at the Division 1 and Division 2. I really think that's important if we want to move this game forward. The Premier League, as you say, Graeme, they'll not alter that. They've got too much control, the big clubs there. They don't want to shift out of that division. So they're not going to invite anybody in. That's a certainty. And
you look at a team like Inverness, 2014, they won the Scottish Cup. Yes. They were in the Premier League, and they are now struggling to stay afloat. I mean, it's a real shame. I mean, they went into administration last season, 15-point deduction. They could actually stay up. They're actually doing all right. They're ahead of Annan, I think it is. They could stay up, but in a few weeks' time, they could be done. You know, they could be out of business, which is, when you think about it, it's horrendous. I never like to see any club going out of business.
But I'll tell you what, they've done exceptionally well to be where they are, considering the deduction.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm still hoping to win the league because I tipped them. Yeah.
but no, Graeme, sorry, you were saying there. You're right. You know, you don't want to see any club get out of business.
Yeah, it's horrible. You know, it's put football rivalries aside. You never like to see any club going out of business. There's a team like Inverness who are a really good family club. I've been there a few times at their stadium, and to see a club like that in so much trouble, and the fact they were talking about like nobody wants to come in, nobody wants to save them. It's stuff like that is you don't really think about that when you're a team in the Premier League. You never think about things like that. But these fans that go every week, it affects them. You know, having no football club, I couldn't imagine that. Like having no football club, it's horrendous. Like Hearts are a big part of my life. When we were in administration, it was horrible, but I knew we'd get out of it. But a club like Inverness, no chance. You look at Gretna back in 2005, 2006, got to a cup final, but that was all built on Brooks Melson. They came up through 3 divisions. He then passed away, one person's dream, and they pretty much died, and they've come back now, obviously, but it's horrible. It's a horrible situation for them. I really hope Inverness do survive, because it's not a nice feeling.
No.
Yeah, listen, we need Inverness, Cally Thistle in Scottish football. And what surprises me is I know there's been ups and downs in the oil industry, but in that neck of the woods, there is some strong wealth still existing. And it surprises me that somebody in the Brooke Melson mode has not put their hand in their back pocket and helped them out to the extent that they're not just going to avoid relegation, they're going to be charging on at least next year to be winning that championship. Now, that'll take quite a lot of money, but there is people out there that maybe they see something we don't, but you know, they're a good club, and I think they deserve better.
I think the problem is now is there's such a little chance of getting any kind of return on that financial investment, Dennis. You know, and that's the problem now with Scottish football. You know, I mean, a club like Rangers have been struggling to get any financial investment. Okay, they might have struck the golden goose, so to speak, you know, with the 49ers owners coming in, you know, but it's not just something that affects the lower leagues. It also affects our top leagues and trying to get investment into them, you know, and I think that's the problem. You're talking about English non-league and can try to compare it with the lower leagues in Scotland. It's night and day, because the English non-league clubs have got a TV deal. You know, that you're getting to watch a live game on the TV. Up here, we're on the back of BBC One bootstraps, you know, for maybe about a Friday night football or something like that. But we don't have a proper TV deal for anything out with the SPL. Down south, so say you've got that. The financial investment is there as well. You know, they're pulling in crowds of 4,000 or 5,000 at non-league games. You know, the better supported ones. Plus, obviously, they've got a drip feed effect from the TV deal that they've got at the top with Sky. We don't have that up here. We don't have anything there to make investing in a club any kind of worthwhile investment at all. And that's the problem, you know, where you've got Bonnyrigg Rose, you've got Edinburgh City, you know, all looking at potentially going out of business as well. It is going to only be a matter of time, I think, before at least one, if not 2 or 3 clubs do not exist. And I think that's something that's inevitable, Graeme, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you talk about the TV deal, because, again, I've had a rant with this before. You look at England, for example, they've got Match of the Day, but also on Saturday they've got the lower league highlights programme. You don't have that. All you've got is the highlights in the Premier League on the Premier League games. Yes, you've got the Championship games that get shown on Friday night, which is great, but you don't actually have a highlights package for League One, League Two, and the Championship. And I've said that for so many times. That should have happened ages ago. You've actually got a BBC Scotland channel there. It is literally called BBC Scotland, and they don't show games on it, apart from the Championship games. And finally, yesterday, finally Scotland. But you've got a perfectly good channel there that is BBC Scotland, and they don't have a highlights package for lower league. And I've said this so many times, it's an absolute joke. It should have been sorted ages ago But again, maybe it's because these people just don't care at the TV deal, but they need to get that sorted. It is ridiculous. Not a proper highlights package for Championship, League One and League Two, but in England, they've got it.
Yeah. Most of these clubs now film their own games. You know, I know there's Clyde TV, you know, in terms, obviously, they go along to the games. It's run by supporters, fair enough, you know. I'm pretty sure Clyde's not the only club that does that. It wouldn't take much for a BBC to get a hold of guys from each club and look at even syndicating some kind of TV package there in conjunction with the lower league clubs, you know, and the lower league local televisions, local TV stations, you know, club stations. It's not the end of the world to do something like that. And there's a half hour, 45 minutes of viewing time because it would get viewers. But bringing it back to what Dennis says, there's too much woke in football, you know, where we're more than happy. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but we keep disregarding the lower league game to support the women's game in Scottish football. I think there's a place for both, but for my money, the men's game is too often, the men's lower league game is too often getting ignored at the expense of the women's game, and I think that's where the two of them need to coexist.
There is room for both, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're not slaughtering women's football here.
No, but if you look at it last week, and we pay a licence fee, I got absolutely saturation point on BBC One with the English Ladies Cup final. No, I don't want that because the standard's not good enough for me, right? So therefore, I want to watch something, and it's not ladies football. It's just the fact that at prime time, at lunchtime, there's other things that could have been put on. Yes, it could have been put on another channel, but it wasn't. It's right in your face. We're not asking for the men's game to be put right in your face. What we're asking for is almost like a level playing field. There is never a day goes by that I look at the channels and whatever it's terrestrial or whatever it is, there's ladies football on it. Now, that's good, but you have to search around. And what Graeme is saying is, when did we last search around and find, what would you say, League One, League Two matches?
Can't find it.
You see Lord looking before you'll see one of these matches. So, you know, it's just a joke. So
indeed,
I just find it's very poor. Yeah, keep the ladies' games coming because there is a slight improvement, and I'm not knocking it too much. And I did say to you last week, St Johnstone do have a women's football team.
Yeah.
I did look. Yes, they have. Graeme might be sitting thinking,
they load themselves to play on that park, Dennis.
Well, what happened was I'm watching the St Johnstone's pitch last week, and that's absolutely shambolic, right? Yeah. It's a mess. The ball was bobbling everywhere. And I thought, they can't have a women's football team because they wouldn't put up with that. That's a wee tongue-in-cheek dig at them. But the bottom line is that St Johnstone's pitch is very, very poor. And I just don't know what's happened with that. I really don't. I thought there'd be a standard that they would need to have to be playing it. And I know that changes up slightly away from our television coverage at Division 1 and Division 2, or even further back, the split. What do you think, Graeme, in relation to League One and League Two? Do you think they should be regional?
Yeah, I mean, I could see probably why they would do it, but again, I'd like to know if they were actually, if they'd be up for it, if there was a vote taken, would they say yes, we'll do it? I wonder how many would actually say yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It could look as a backward step where they're not national. Then I could understand that, but from a financial point of view,
at the top, if we see clubs at the top level voting in terms, obviously, for Christmas and all that kind of stuff, you know, Turkey's no voting for Christmas. I think clubs themselves in the lower leagues, if you do consider the fact of the finances that they're going to save, you know, where Stranraer only visiting Peterhead or Elgin and vice versa, you know, that the clubs are maybe going as low as Perth or whatever else, you know, I think there is that. You're still going to have the cup games and things, you know, but I think in the league, it's something we really need to look at, and if we're going to save money and in turn save football clubs, because I think it is only going to be a matter of time. I hate to say it, where somebody's going out of existence. And if saving potentially 20,000, 30,000, whatever it is on transport costs, by regionalising, that's money that clubs can look at doing something else with.
See if you look at it when you say going out of existence, run through it. Albion Rovers, East Stirling, Cowdenbeath, Gretna, Berwick. Handful of teams that to me have almost gone out of existence. Because if they were financially viable, they wouldn't have taken the drop.
Why? You're always going to get somebody finishing bottom and getting relegated. And that's what's happened with these clubs.
I know that. But at the same time, for 50, 60, maybe more years, 70 years, they've played in that lower division, with the exception of East Stirling continually been down there when maybe restructuring was done, or relegation should have been brought in maybe earlier. You know the history of that. They were getting paid £10 a week with nothing coming in through the gates relevant. Okay, that's got to be put aside. But when you look at the other teams, and I spent 7 years at Albion Rovers, I know the work and commitment that went in there. But they were never, ever going to compete with the bigger teams because of financial restraints. Now, one of the financial restraints would be travelling implications.
Yeah.
So you've got to say that might have bought a centre forward or a centre half if you didn't have that. Now, everybody's in the same boat, then you might say, well, the next team, they're the exact same boat. But I think it would be better spent on a player trying to improve your team than maybe a bus going all the way up to Inverness or wherever it may be.
Yeah. If you're Stranraer.
Right. Oh,
and that's the thing. Yeah, but we're using Stranraer as an example. That's it, and that's an easy one, because beyond Stranraer and Queen of the South and maybe Annan, that's your southernmost clubs.
You've still got other places, Cammy. Arbroath, Cove, Montrose, Inverness, and that division above. They're all a long shift for the central belt. You shouldn't be relying on more than an hour and a half.
But you're still going to have the clubs there, so you're going to draw a line, maybe, let's say, around about Cumbernauld, where you're going to be north and south of maybe Cumbernauld, so that'll be you. And again, it depends where you're going to do it.
Well, I think you would probably draw your line at Stirling, because you've Stennismuir and Stirling there in that area. Then you go above it, and then you've got Dundee and above, which is all the Fife and Highland teams, if you want to call them Highland, which would play in that zone, which is Arbroath, Montrose, Dundee with whatever in the lower divisions. So you would probably Forfar, Brecon. So there's a zone there where there's quite a glut of them, that if you're in the central belt or even lower, then it's a bit of a trek. Yeah,
indeed. But anyway, I think that's our geography lesson just about done. I think we virtually got everything spot on. So that's pretty much us for tonight. It's been obviously a week where we've discussed International Week, so not a great deal of football and fixtures to discuss. So I'd like to thank Graeme Duthie again for joining us. Graeme, hopefully when you're next with us, Hearts are above Hibs again and the natural order's been restored.
It's not far to go. It's not a million miles away.
It's a 2-game swing, as you keep saying. You look at what Inverness have done in terms of that 5-game swing lower down. A few less games for Hearts, but Hibs have been nothing short of fantastic since the turn of the year. Hearts have been up there as well, and as I say, it's been great to watch both Edinburgh clubs, the success of them since the turn of the year.
Yeah,
but again, thanks, as I say, Graeme, for joining us anyway. It's always good to get your opinions and everything every week or every time that you're on the show. So thanks very much. Thanks as always to Dennis. Thanks to you for listening. Remember, go ahead, like, subscribe, tell your pals, particularly about next week's show, as I say, because we are joined by West Ham assistant manager Billy Reid and Greenock Morton assistant manager Andy Millen. Remember, it's always happening on the pitch. Good night.